Hello, my dear Lokitsunes. I am Yukio Kokoro. I am your host tonight, and I will be sharing my stories with you. I hope you'll like and subscribe. And let's continue to the last chapter. Scheiße. Got my phone. Right now, there's only 8 chapters and 2 chapters remaining. Please enjoy.
Porcelain daylight flipped to indigo nothingness the moment the teacup clicked open. Goyang landed polite on a ribbon of gravity that existed solely because she wished not to fall. Laplace touched down beside her, tray outstretched like a balancing pole. Mirabelle, clutching her whirring goggles, skidded in last, boots sending silent ripples through the vacuum. Below them floated the Kaleido realm, a trembling snow globe of avenues and half-truths, its equator ringed by fissures that bled star wind. The breaches glimmered like cracked crystal, edges frayed and blinking. Each pulse subtracted seconds from the 7 polite minutes the butler had predicted. Observation, Laplace intoned, monocle frosting. Void temperature, peppermint minus wonder, recommend brisk stitching. Goyang flicked open her spool of quantum catgut. The thread shimmered, silver one moment, transparent the next, as though unsure which reality to acknowledge. She threaded it through a needle plucked from her top hat, the eye of which was perfectly round only from certain angles. Mirabelle swallowed. I've never sewn a universe before. Begin with one honest knot, Goyang advised. The rest is embroidery. They approached the first gash. Inside the wound, courthouse towers morphed into children's block castles, then into fog, illusions cycling without the Senate's nightly lies to pin them down. Goyang cast the needle. It traveled in an elegant arc, piercing both lips of reality. As she drew the thread taut, Mirabelle spoke clearly. I was 8 when I stole my sister's thesis idea. The confession crystallized into a gleaming clasp, locking the stitch. Instantly, the surrounding skyline steadied, choosing the shape of a modest courthouse with uncluttered columns. Mirabelle exhaled a laugh halfway between relief and penance. It likes truth. Truth is sticky, Goyang smiled, setting another throw. Forgiveness is the knot. Generosity keeps pulling the next length. 2 breaches closed, then 3. For every toss of catgut, Mirabelle offered another unvarnished admission. Her field failures, the love letter she never sent, the lie she told herself about not needing anyone. Each time, the realm grew sturdier, foundations humming in grateful bass notes. Laplace handled the geometry, folding segments of void so the edges aligned. A courteous swirl of his tray turned absence into workable fabric. Soon only the largest tier remained, a jagged mouth wider than a cathedral. That was when the peppermint wind sharpened. From a perch of broken starlight drifted a silhouette identical to Goyang's. Long white hair, trench coat, rabbit-eared hat. Rogue Goyang descended, boots clicking on invisible probability, scissors of obsidian gleaming in one hand. Copycat, Mirabelle whispered. Not a copy, the newcomer purred. The correction, singular, uncompromised, finally free of contradictory siblings. Goyang's tail flicked, equal parts annoyance and concern. Sister, we're entangled. Cut me and you have yourself. Worth the reduction. The rogue opened her hat. Black swans of anti-possibility swooped out, their wings erasing whatever feathers brushed. They aimed for the half-mendied seam. Laplace stepped forward, tray canted like a shield. Equations sprayed in glowing script. Swan velocity times compassion 2 scissors momentum. The numbers formed a lattice, slowing the flock, but edges still frayed. Goyang flicked her needle into a saber of light, intercepting the scissors with a chime. Steel met paradox, sparks of maybe fluttered away. You fear collapse, she told her counterpart, blades locked. But wholeness is not a synonym for solitude. I fear dilution, the rogue hissed. She pivoted, probability stutter-stepping so that each move occurred in several possible positions. Goyang mirrored the dance. Whenever their sabers clashed, instants died and were reborn elsewhere, leaving ghostly afterimages meowing in confusion. Mirabelle sprinted toward the open wound, spooling catgut behind her. With no time for slow honesty, she shouted the boldest truth she had. "I love the impossible." The words detonated into golden anchors that bit into the torn rim. She tied a knot anyway, forgiving herself for loving too late. The rogue slashed, severing half the new stitch. Reality groaned, recoil sucking debris toward the void. Mirabelle began sliding. Laplace caught her coat just as wind tried to claim her. Goyang recognized the pattern. Every generous act weakened her twin's resolve. She dropped her saber and spoke instead. "I'm terrified each cup of tea may be the last taste I get. I lie about being unafraid. I forgive myself for the performance." The confession left her rogue self blinking, literally. The twins' eyes flickered like malfunctioning bulbs. A moment of overlay shimmered between them, showing what a merged existence might feel like. Spacious, warm, less lonely than either ever admitted. Then the rogue recoiled, panting. "If we fuse, my edges blur." She hurled the obsidian scissors end over end at the final stitch, intent on snipping the realm free so she alone could claim certainty. Laplace reacted first. He appended the silver tray. An entire tea service cascaded out, cups in orbit like white moons. Each cup contained a folded corridor of elsewhere, expanding on contact. The projectile sailed through 3 corridors in rapid succession, emerging elsewhere every time, lengthening its flight until its momentum bled out. It tumbled harmlessly, caught by a polite saucer. Mirabelle plucked the scissors, fixed them shut with a clasp of brass sincerity, and handed them to Goyang. "Tools can change purpose," she said. The rogue stood alone, hands empty, expression desperate. "I only wanted to be real." "You already are," Goyang said softly. She extended the catgut spool. "Help finish the seam, choose generosity." For a heartbeat, the void smelled less of peppermint and more of jasmine hope. The rogue's shoulders trembled. Then she spun on her heel and dove into her own hat, vanishing in a spiral of black ribbon. Behind her, a ragged slice appeared where thread had begun to fray again. Goyang sighed, ears folding back. "She's gone for now, the breach is." 1:40, Laplace warned, monocle aglow. They set to work, 3 blurting truths in machine gun rhythm. "I forge citations," Mirabelle. "I envy mortals' certainty," Laplace. "I still hear the Geiger counter in my nightmares," Goyang. Each statement locked a rung, generosity knot, forgiveness knot, generosity knot, until the final pull cinched with a resonant thrum. The tear sealed. Starwind calmed to peppermint breeze. From below, the realm steadied, rooftops regaining color. Goyang patted the catgut spool. Only a few shimmering yards remained. Realm secure for the moment. Mirabelle peered into the hat-shaped absence where the rogue had escaped. "She'll strike again." Goyang nodded. "And next time we'll offer more than thread. We'll offer welcome." Laplace straightened his tailcoat. "Probability restored to 92% hospitable. Shall we pour reality back into its cup?" Goyang smiled, whiskers twitching. "After all that sewing, yes, tea." The porcelain lip of the teacup unfolded, and the 3 travelers spilled back into the rebuilt plaza just as dusk lanterns flickered on. Kaleido citizens stood in dazed clusters, patting the marble that moments earlier had been vapor. A collective sigh rippled through the streets when they saw fissures were mended. Goyang twirled her needle once before sliding it, now no longer needle but silver fountain pen, into the ribbon band of her top hat. All stitched, all steady. Time for a parting kindness. Mirabelle's boots were still humming with leftover starlight. She tried to appear composed, but her goggles kept fogging from relieved tears. If the axiom lattice stays this calm, the Senate will need days to notice how much changed. Hours, actually, Laplace corrected, producing a pocket watch whose hands chased one another like coy fish. But a margin exists for farewells and tea. Goyang snapped her fingers. A small parlor blossomed around them, wallpaper patterned with hypercubes, armchairs stitched from probability silk. In its center hovered a jade teapot that refused to obey gravity or steam etiquette. Fragrant curls of vapor wrote the word welcome in midair before looping back into the spout. Mirabelle sank into an armchair. "I ought to return to my sister," she murmured. "Honesty may have ruined our relationship. Maybe honesty can repair it too." Goyang filled a porcelain cup. The tea looked like ordinary amber until the light struck it. Then galaxies swirled inside, collapsing and reinflating with every breath. "Schrödinger Earl," she said, "both soothing and startling. Drink once for courage, twice for clarity." Mirabelle accepted, lips trembling against the rim. When she swallowed, her pupils widened as if she'd seen an entirely new branch of mathematics. "It tastes like the moment before a discovery." Goyang pressed a lacquered tin of the leaves into the scientist's hands. "A gift. Share it generously. Its flavor grows sharper when brewed for two." Mirabelle hugged the tin to her chest. "You stitched a universe and still think to give tea." "Generosity keeps the thread from unraveling," Goyang replied. "Go home, Dr. Vox, and pour a cup of possibility for your sister." Laplace unfolded a door from the surface of his silver tray, a hallway lined with glowing equations that sloped gently toward Mirabelle's hometown. He bowed. "Safe variables, madam." Mirabelle lingered long enough to touch Goyang's gloved hand. "Thank you for forgiving my theft, for trusting me with stitches and with this realm." "And thank you," Goyang answered, ears flicking fondly, "for loving the impossible." With a final nod, Mirabelle stepped through the door. It folded behind her like a polite letter, vanishing from the plaza. The parlor dissolved, leaving Goyang and Laplace in the open square. Persistent crickets of surveillance still whirred overhead, tiny brass insects whose eyes replayed curated lies on their wings. Citizens ignored them, but Laplace's monocle dimmed at the sight. "Observation," he said quietly. "The Senate has lost today's skirmish, yet their algorithms are rewriting. Expect countermeasures." "What kind?" "A grand masquerade tourney," he predicted, tapping the watch. "At midnight tonight, contestants compete to craft the most alluring falsehood. Winner earns immediate custody of the Book of Beautiful Lies." Goyang's tail traced thoughtful figure eights. "That book already belongs in my hat." Laplace offered her the tray. "Then we must prepare your hat to outlie every liar, paradoxically through truth." Zio. Training commenced atop the librarian's spire, a tower whose pages flapped like sails in the evening wind. Goyang planted her feet on a narrow cornice. Below, multicolored manuscript roofs rustled like restless birds. "First exercise," Laplace announced. "Extraction of an honest impossibility." Goyang removed her top hat and reached inside. For a moment her arm blurred, existing in several lengths. She pictured forgiveness, warm and persistent, and yanked out a sunbeam still apologizing for last night's eclipse. "Acceptable," Laplace judged, but flipped a chalkboard from thin air. "Can you weave that beam into a statement?" She snapped the light across the sky. It wrote, "We were wrong, and we are brighter for it." Every letter rang like crystal, forcing lurking surveillance crickets to chirp the sentence aloud. A dozen citizens paused, contemplating the sentiment. In their silence, a small flower market solidified, choosing authentic petals over painted ones. A second beam whistled by, an arrow of silk shadow fired from an alley. It clanged off Laplace's tray and dissolved, but its source emerged. A pair of mirror knights wearing fresh faceplates etched with the Senate seal. Halt, the lead knight commanded, reflection flickering through a carousel of counterfeit smiles. Truth Cat, you are summoned to tonight's tourney as prisoner, not participant. Goyang set her hat back onto her white hair, ears poking through the holes she'd cut ages ago. If you wish me confined, you'll have to believe I'm real enough to hold. The knight hesitated. Their armor ran on confident illusion, and confidence wavered. Goyang capitalized, stepping forward with claws retracted, voice gentle. Let us exchange honesty. Remove the helmet and tell me your name. A ripple of electric unease waddled across his plating. After a tense breath, the knight unclasped the visor. Inside was a young woman with freckles and tired eyes. Sir Captain Vessa. Thank you, Vessa, Goyang said, bowing. The Senate profits from your silence. I would prefer your song. Vessa's truth spilled out involuntarily. I paint watercolors between patrols. I pretend not to. The pretense hurts. Honesty rang. Her armor, dependent on the lie, imploded into harmless origami swans that fluttered down the side of the tower. The second knight fled, chased by his own shrinking reflection. Vessa stared at her liberated hands. What will I wear now? Goyang removed a ribbon from her coat, plain white, tipped with starlight, and tied it around the woman's wrist. Paint in peace, that is uniform enough. Vessa bowed, tears tracking across freckles, and descended the staircase humming an unfinished tune. Laplace calculated aloud. One freed variable equals one weakened Senate exponent. Good, Goyang said, breathing peppermint dusk. But the tourney remains. If we meet falsehood with simple truth, they will excuse us from the game. We must instead demonstrate that truth can be as entertaining as deceit. She tapped her hat twice. Out came juggling pins that represented contradictory axioms. One pin claimed gravity was optional. Another argued it mandatory. She spun them faster and faster until the eye perceived a single shimmering column. Then she let go. The pins hovered of their own accord, finally agreeing. Both statements may be useful if kindly applied. Laplace applauded with the flat of his tray. A compelling act, but the Senate possesses heavier artillery, rumor machines, denial cannons, the chorus of doubt. I'll take the stage before they can load, she promised. Her red eyes glinted like twin rubies under a theater spotlight. We shall serve Schrödinger Earl to the crowd, brew a narrative that leaves room for many flavors. A gong tolled from the far side of the city, 3 bass strikes reverberating through marble. Laplace's watch showed only 8:30, yet the sound announced registration for the tourney had opened early. Variable shift, he said. They advance the schedule to corner us. Then we slip the corner, Goyang answered, slipping a final item from the hat, a mask that looked like nothing until someone tried to describe it. I will enter not as the Truth Cat, but as Question Incarnate. Laplace's ears, plush and velveteen, tilted in approval. I shall secure backstage routes, brew distraction steam, and fold the audience in our favor. The Catwoman balanced on the cornice, city lights twinkling below, peppermint wind combing her long white hair. She exhaled, part nerves, part excitement. Tests awaited, allies might multiply, enemies certainly would. She raised the mask, pausing only to whisper toward the unseen horizon. Stay safe, Mirabelle. Tonight we juggle worlds. The mask settled. Reality blinked, trying and failing to decide who she was, only knowing she felt like a generous question mark sliding toward midnight. The Question Incarnate stood atop the librarian's spire, wind plucking at her trench coat like impatient fingers. Through the featureless mask, Goyang tasted ozone and something subtler, the perfume of her rogue probability, a scent only half-alive cats could detect. It smelled of static, envy, and unfinished lullabies. Direction, Mr. P. Laplace inquired. His velveteen ears swiveled while the monocle flashed vectors across the night. South by inside, Goyang answered. She's traveling through the realm's stitching, not its streets. That places her near the Senate's weaveworks, where communal falsehood is spun at dusk. The butler balanced a compass teacup on his tray. The liquid inside sloshed against gravity, pointing down through stone and story alike. If she unpicks even one shuttle, Goyang murmured, the whole tapestry will tangle before midnight. Then no tourney, only tumble into void. Laplace produced 2 saucers that unfolded into silver snowshoes. Threadwalkers, he explained. They let honest feet stand on lies without falling through. Goyang strapped them over her heeled boots. With each step, reality squeaked as if she trod fresh paint. Together, master and servant strolled straight off the spire and onto the air itself, descending invisible margins between sentences of the city. Below, festival lanterns glowed, promising the coming masquerade tourney. Above, fissures, poorly mended from earlier, crackled like ice. Into one such crack the pair slipped, vanishing from ordinary perspective. The cavern of looms. They emerged in darkness brightened only by glimmer fibers. Miles of mechanical looms clattered, shuttles firing back and forth to weave every sanctioned untruth that gave Kaleido realm its color. The ceiling was a dome of half-completed sunsets held in suspension until the Senate approved tomorrow's sky. Rogue Goyang perched on the iron frame of the prime loom, tails swishing like an impatient metronome. She had traded bunny cat regalia for a jagged frock cut from canceled rumors. Obsidian scissors dangled from her belt. Seeing the newcomers, she grinned with all Goyang's teeth yet none of her warmth. Sister self, you bring the rabbit butler. Did you also bring surrender? I brought a conversation, Goyang said, mask dissipating into white petals so her red eyes could meet her twin's scarlet glare. We can still merge. You fear erasure, but integration is not death. The rogue tapped the scissors against a loom beam. Sparks of negative possibility hissed at the floor. Threads near her blackened, weaving a rumor that the moon would refuse to rise. It took Laplace a quick flick of his tray to reflect the rumor back, bleaching it harmless. Merge, the rogue laughed, sound skipping frames. I spent probability decades in your shadow. Let me be singular for a single midnight. Goyang stepped forward, snowshoe soles pinging on taut warp threads. Singular cats are lonely cats. Loneliness breeds cruel lies. She extended a gloved hand. The rogue's pupils widened, pupils within pupils, cataloging every possible future handshake. A tremor struck the loom, half-woven daylight shuddered. Above, the dome's paused sunsets ghosted to gray. Laplace cleared his throat in tidy Morse code. Systemic risk escalating, madam. In 8 real minutes, the weaveworks will begin the dusk cycle. If the rogue holds the prime shuttle then every lie tonight will be hers, Goyang finished. Citizens will wake inside a story that hates them. The rogue licked her lips. Exactly, a perfect lie that only I exist. Goyang's tail flicked once, twice, a semaphore of regret. Honesty, I'm frightened too. You embody that fear. But I learned today that generosity weakens dread, so I offer something the Senate never will. She removed the ribbon of starlight she'd given Captain Vessa's watercolor wrist and tied it into a loop. It replicated, unraveling from her fingers until enough ribbon filled the aisle. A tether, she said. So when we merge, no part is lost. The rogue hesitated, claws flexing. Desire flickered in her gaze, desire to belong. But survival reflex screamed louder. She hurled the obsidian scissors downward. They opened midair, snipping a fresh crack across reality's floor. Through the slit roared peppermint void. Wind seized machines, spools, and daydream debris. Bolts of half-truth fluttered like panicked doves. Laplace planted his tray into the turbines, equations glowing crimson as he anchored local constants. Seal recommended forthwith. Goyang lunged, not to capture the rogue, but to save the prime shuttle now tumbling toward the crack. She snagged it by its golden eye, yanked back, and locked eyes with her twin across the maelstrom. "Forgiveness isn't weakness," she shouted over the howl. "Take the ribbon." For an instant the rogue's fingers stretched, inches from the loop of starlight. Then Senate alarms gonged through the chamber, guards approaching. Choice flared in the rogue's face. Reconcile now or flee and finish her plan elsewhere. Fear won. She backflipped into the crack, vanishing with the shriek of tearing cello strings. The ribbon fell unclaimed. Laplace wrestled the machinery calm. The void wind subsided, leaving only drifting motes of ashes that might once have been tomorrow's clouds. "Pursuit impossible until constants restabilize," he reported, adjusting his monocle. "We retain custody of the prime shuttle. Dusk weaving may proceed under Senate authority rather than rogue influence." "Authority that despises us," Goyang sighed. She tucked the golden shuttle into her hat where it chimed like tiny bells. "But at least citizens won't wake inside a nightmare we wrote." Her ears folded with fatigue. Integration had failed for now. Yet she held two consolations. The ribbon still glimmered, symbol of open invitation, and the scent trail remained, leading into deeper fractures between world layers. Laplace's timepiece chimed 10:15. 2 hours 15 until tourney commencement. Probability the rogue will strike there now exceeds 80%. "Then we chase," Goyang said, lifting the ribbon. She retied it round her own wrist as reminder of unfinished generosity. "But smarter this time. She's inside the cracks, we'll move between them." She doffed her hat. Out popped a flat origami cat, paper white on one side, ink black on the other. It folded itself into a compass whose needles spun not north-south, but self-not-self. "Our tracker," she declared. "When the needle stands still, we'll be beside her heart." Laplace bowed. "I shall prepare a corridor of half probability, optimized for swift yet stealthy pursuit." On his tray equations blossomed, shaping into a translucent hallway flickering like film negatives. Goyang breathed peppermint night, drinking courage and regret alike. "Forgiveness is patient," she told the silent looms, "but it is also persistent." Together, Cat and bunny-headed Butler stepped into the corridor, leaving the catacomb of maybe to shudder back into false calm. Outside, festival drums rolled, unaware that two versions of the same paradox raced toward a rendezvous neither entirely desired nor could wholly escape. The veranda of Goyang's floating cottage unfolded like the lid of a music box as she and Mr. P. Laplace stepped out of the corridor. Behind them, the slit in space zipped shut, leaving only the eternal twilight of the interreality void. Nebula moths flitted around porch lanterns filled with liquid dusk, and somewhere in the distance, an impossible rooster attempted to crow in every tense at once. Goyang inhaled. No sense here but the clean, wordless vacuum between possibilities, a relief after the perfumed scramble of the Kaleido realm. She tugged off her mask and set it beside the doormat that read both alive and dead inside. "Home in one piece, madam," Laplace announced, straightening his tailcoat. "One contiguous, three-dimensional piece, to be precise." "One is plenty for tonight," Goyang sighed. Her red eyes shimmered with fatigue and quiet triumph. She still carried the golden shuttle and the ribbon of starlight. They pulsed in opposite rhythms, reminders of victory and failure braided together. Inside, the cottage greeted them with polite contradictions. A fireplace that crackled with snow, cupboards that squeaked apologies each time a hinge bent truthward, and the faint music of last Tuesday dribbling from an unoccupied teacup. Goyang doffed her trench coat, hung her hat on a hook labeled Future Rabbits, and brushed ash from her white ears. Laplace drifted toward the kettle nook. "May I suggest a blend derived from semi-honest oolong leaves and full-hearted forgiveness petals? It should counterbalance residual paradox stress." "Please," Goyang murmured. She slumped into an armchair upholstered in unsolved riddles, every cushion emitting a soft hum. When pressed, the chair asked its questions, but she had no bandwidth to answer. The butler's tray unfolded into a portable stovetop. Within seconds, the kettle sang a chord that made the furniture stop fidgeting. Steam spiraled, and Laplace poured. The tea smelled like the moment after a friend forgives you and before you forgive yourself. Goyang sipped once. Warmth spread along every quantum strand of her being, tugging her contradictory states into a friendly cuddle. "Better," she whispered, admitting it as honestly as she could. Across the table, Laplace produced a chalkboard napkin and wrote an equation. Truth minus fear plus generosity equals stable heart. Then, with a courteous flick, he reduced the formula to a smiley face and tucked it into her pocket. Goyang couldn't help smiling back. Minutes passed, time here was mostly optional, and silence settled like clean snow. But unspoken thoughts finally nudged her tongue. "I left them to finish mending without me," she confessed. "Mirabelle, the citizens, even the Senate's rattled ranks. I claimed it was wise to step away, yet part of me wonders if I fled." Laplace set down the teapot. "Retreat is not always flight, madam. A home is a lens. Step back to see anew, step forward when ready." "I'm not certain I'll ever be ready to face my rogue again." Goyang knotted the ribbon of starlight round her wrist. "She's me, distilled to panic and want. How do you forgive a piece of yourself that thinks forgiveness is poison?" "By offering the antidote regardless," Laplace replied gently. "Generosity granted once is invitation, granted twice, a tradition." Before she could answer, the cottage door chimed, a hollow bong that resonated through non-space. Visitors were rare. Most travelers misplaced the path entirely. Goyang rose, tail twitching. The visitor proved to be an envelope floating midair, sealed with a question mark pressed into soft wax the color of galaxies. The wax flickered, uncertain if it was red or blue. Laplace presented his tray. The envelope settled upon it. Goyang broke the seal. Ink coalesced in mid-sentence as if writing itself while she read. "To the Honorable Cat both present and absent. The Council of the Untied Knots summons you to the Quadratic Hearth for parley. Topic: stabilization of rogue. Probabilities: attendance obligatory unless impossible. Kindly arrive before tomorrow has decided which yesterday it likes. Sincerely, Chairperson of the Gamma Impossibilists." Under the text, a footnote formed. "P.S. Please bring your favorite hat." Goyang allowed the letter to dissolve into tiny origami cranes. "Obligatory unless impossible," she muttered. "That's bureaucrat for drop everything." Laplace's monocle dimmed. "The council rarely intervenes. Their interest implies the rogue probability has escalated beyond local nuisance." As if in agreement, the cottage shuddered. Wallpaper peeled back, revealing raw void where timber ought to be, and the floorboards briefly became transparent, showing an infinite drop into overlapping shadows of herself. Goyang steadied her cup. "She's tugging at my anchor," she said softly. "Our unfinished merge left a thread between us. When she pulls, this place unravels." Laplace extended a velvet-pawed hand. "Recommend immediate course of action, madam." Her mind spun along two orbits. Orbit 1. Travel to the Quadratic Hearth, negotiate with the Council, perhaps secure aid in reconciling with her rogue before the tier widened. Orbit 2. Remain, patch the cottage and by extension her own destabilizing core, close the thread from her side while the Council waits, if tomorrow allows waiting. Generosity urged her outward. Honesty whispered she wasn't prepared. Forgiveness promised either path could heal if walked with open palms. She exhaled, ears flicking snowflakes from the false fireplace. "I must choose quickly. The void is patient, but the council is punctual." Before decision solidified, The fireplace spat out a final spark that blossomed into a tiny hologram of Dr. Mirabelle Vox. The projection's goggles were fogged, her hair more chaotic than usual. Goyang, the hologram crackled, brief message only. City stable so far, but rumor storms forming around a singular white cat. I suspect your rogue counterpart. Be safe. And thank you for the tea leaves and the chance to be honest. Vox out. The image vanished, leaving ember dust shaped like quotation marks. Goyang placed her palm against them. Warmth and responsibility mingled. Whatever I choose, she said, I choose for all of us. Laplace folded his tray to a neat 8-point star, portals ready or tools arranged, depending on her word. The cottage creaked again, less patient this time. Far below, gears of non-existent gravity clicked. Direction, madam. Goyang's tail drew a slow question mark in the air. For the first moment since leaving Kaleido, she felt the sweetness of real uncertainty, unflavored by panic, a flavor like uncut citrus. To patch the hearth of myself, or heed the hearth of equations, she murmured. And the void listened, expectant, balanced on maybe.
I hope you enjoyed it, my little kitsunes. I hope you enjoyed that, my little kitsunes. I will bless your evening with a good and wonderful, relaxing night. I hope you're able to relax after a long day of work.